So it's a pleasure to be here today and talking about what we have. I run a special business in Phoenix, Arizona. And for those of you who don't know, that's several hours, 12 so in that direction. And we make cars, and we make cars possible. And I was so proud today to be able to bring 2 of those cars that customers have built for everybody to see. If you haven't seen them yet, please go outside and check them out. We've got a team here, Damien and Buddy. Buddy's going to be giving rides later so you can understand that they actually do drive, but it's a first come, first served basis. I hope you'll just stick around to listen to the few words that I have to say before you run out to ride in the cars. Okay, so we empower a world of automakers, and that's really what we do more than anything else in the world. Whether it's CAD, fabrication, engineering, or design, we're in it to win it for vehicles. Cars, boats, planes, bikes, trains, anything that moves you around, we think they're awesome, and we think there's a whole community of people out there who think they're awesome too, and that's what we're here for. And so for us, basically building a program that allows people to be able to take part in that in every way is great. Here's some pictures of some rally fighters that are out there that customers have built, and it gives people pride, and it gives people a new lens to think about the thing that takes them around. Infinite computing, as Carl just shared with us, is the beginning of something that ends with us being able to move the heavy atoms around and replace them in ways that change the way we do our life, the way we work. And so offering you pride as an ability to do that instead of just how much money you have in your pocketbook is a new motivator that's out there. And we think it's really important. Here's some customers building their car. And that's what it looks like when you come in and you build a car. It's not the soul of Local Motors that you have to build your own car. It is in fact the very soul that exists in people's minds about being part of what they do, opening up your kid's head in order to be able to put things inside. That is what is so exciting for people when they come in and they take part in this process. And that's what they look like at the end when they finish building their own car. And they pull up next to a Ferrari, and the Ferrari rolls down the window and says, "That is an awesome car, where'd you buy it?" And you say, "I didn't buy it, I built it with my son." It's an aha moment that's really amazing. So as a result of this process, we're taking a real product, we're taking something that moves, that has to keep you safe, that needs to be able to roll over 3 times at 55 miles an hour and still allow you to walk away from the vehicle, and we're trying to make it more sustainable, we're trying to make it more recyclable, and we're trying to make it more changeable so that you want to spend money to buy the heavy atoms. Because after all, that's the important thing. It's something that allows you to be able to engage with the product. So there are 2 outside. I've driven mine. I own one. I drive it every day. I've driven it across the country 2 times. I've put about 45,000 miles on my car. And of the 30 cars that we've delivered so far in the first 6 months of production, we have about 400,000 miles logged on those vehicles. So we're working. So thank you very much. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you. So this is Local Motors, and this is what a microfactory looks like today. It's something we hope to replicate all over the world as an example of local production and as a lightning rod for what it means to be able to crowdsource and open source vehicles. So we empower that same community that we have engaged in building vehicles to express their own dreams. And basically, it comes out in amazing products. For me, I think a little bit of the backstory that's critical is how it all started. I get asked the question all the time, why would you start a car company? It just doesn't make sense. And my idea was, we need better cars out there on the road. We all know it. It's something that we have an impatient desire for. We want an ability to be able to do it. We need, in order to be able to get better cars, to figure out a simple equation. We have to do it faster, and we have to do it less expensively. I mean, those are the simple inputs to be able to have better cars and better ideas on the road. If it continues to cost as much, or if it continues to take as long, there's no way we'll have better cars out there. So that was sort of my impetus. I know it sounds stupid. I sort of thought to myself, okay, how am I going to do this? Well, I'm going to make them cheaper and I'm going to make them faster. That just doesn't happen automatically, but that was my idea. And so for me, the aha moment happened. I was a Marine in 2004. I was in Iraq. 2 of my friends had just been killed that year. One of them was a father of 3 children who had never come home to see his kids again, and another one was married and hadn't had a chance to have kids yet. And so for me, it was like, what can I do to honor their sacrifice? And what can I do to keep us from fighting wars, not just American wars, but wars that are fought by tribes all over the world over heavy atoms? People who don't have access yet to infinite computing, people who need access to be able to get something from market and come home and feed their children. On the hierarchy of needs, they seem to find themselves in a transport scenario all the time. And so for me, that was the motivator. How can I go out in developing countries, in developed countries, and make these things change? And so my boss said to me, all right, Rogers, what do you want to do next? And I said, I want to make cars. And he like picked his jaw up off the floor and he was like, I thought you were gonna tell me like what unit you wanted to go to next, not like make cars. And so I said, no sir, I really wanna make cars. And he said, you don't have the first idea how to make cars. I said, I'm gonna make them cheaper and I'm gonna make them faster. And he was like, great. I think you need to go to business school because they'll tell you that's a stupid idea. And he only signed my papers so that I could get out if I promised that I would apply to business school. And I did think that was a stupid idea. And it turned out that it was a really great idea because making them cheaper and faster is kind of a stupid idea. You need to be able to figure out all the things that enable that to make it happen. And so basically what gave me the right to build a car company was a random set of events, I think, that came about in what exists at Local Motors today and those two cars outside. It probably started with those events in Iraq, but it probably started long before that with a man that I think of as a hero. This is my grandfather. He owned the Indian Motorcycle Company, and it was his great passion in life. He also started a company called TXI, Texas Industries. He founded Public Television. PBS was his brainchild. There's a reason why they call it Mr. Rogers. And so that was his legacy in life, but what he loved more than anything else was the Indian Motorcycle Company. And it didn't work. It failed famously. And there was a reason why it failed famously. There was no way for him to make rapid change in vehicles. He started the famous square cylinder engine. That was a bad idea. And it cost a lot of money. And so again, do it faster, do it cheaper. And I was always really inspired by the things that my grandfather had gone through. And it was just a piece of my sort of touch points around. Not everybody has to have a grandfather that owned a motorcycle company to be able to get into vehicles, but the method is whatever inspires you, learn from the mistakes and iterate faster and cheaper in order to be able to get there. So for me, the first thing in coming out was, okay, if I'm gonna do it faster and cheaper, I need to find money. And I was a graduate of the Harvard Business School at the time, and I thought money grew on trees. And so I went out to go find that money to make it happen. And it turns out America is in a quandary right now. And I just want to put a pin in this for a second because it's really important. At the time that I was doing it in 2006, maybe 2005 when I was really working on the idea, the House had not even thought about a resolution like 3606. There was no like Jumpstart Our Startup Businesses Act. There was no Kickstarter at the time. There was no way of doing it. And to me, I thought, Silicon Valley, Sand Hill Road, that's where it's going to happen. I'm going to come out and I'm going to find money because they understand what revolutions are about. And I felt like the easy answer was, you go to places where they fund the Large Hadron Colliders and they fund, things like FedEx and things like, buildings and other things like that. It turns out that the Silicon Valley address, and I have the scars on my back to prove it, aren't really the places where things like that get funded. And that is the God's honest truth. And it doesn't mean that the people who are here don't understand it. It means that they need a challenge. They need a kick in the ass to say, let's get out of the software realm alone and let's start sharing some of that broad and very incredible intellectual capital that we have to be able to move the heavy atoms around and make products that make a difference. And so I think that basically for me, that was my challenge. And I went out and I found 40 individuals that would fund this business. Crazy. At a time when automotive companies were going, like right off the cliff. And I said, join me and we're going to make a difference. And those people are intrepid capitalists. They are individuals who have been asked by me 5 times over to raise money to be able to make this a dream come true. And when in America we've had a crisis of capital where liquidity is anything but liquid, the good news is there's still people out there and they're individuals. And what things like crowdfunding have proved is that putting power in the hands of individuals is actually the way in which we're going to be able to embolden entrepreneurship to make things happen. And I'm so excited about that. And that's the broad challenge that I have for those of you that have money in terms of being able to make these things real. Find a way to unlock that money to the places where heavy atoms can move around in addition to the software that we have that makes it possible. So we today steward a community of 30,000 people. We have over 100,000 projects that are online. And so we've grown. We've grown with a group of people that are not Facebook size. These are people that are real creators. You understand them. We've heard about them over the last couple of days. And so together, we create it, develop it, build it, mod it. That's sort of our mantra. Create it, develop it, build it, mod it. And we basically wanted to prove that you could do that. It's one of the reasons why we created the Rally Fighter. We wanted to show you that it was possible. And so basically what we've done is we've created a space. We call it the Forge at Local Motors. And basically what we want is for those people to come in and say, whether I start at A and I need to go to D, or whether I start at A and I want to go all the way to Z, here's a place for you to be able to discuss And share secrets, sharing of education, as Carl just talked about, is something that is critical in this for people to be able to show that what they can do and move forward. So that's what happens at the Forge. And it ends up in basically cars all over the world in different places to be able to make these things real and show. Here are some things. We just had a note from one of our customers that left the other day. It's so simple. It kind of looks like that Apple computer that's up there. He just left a little note after he had finished building his car. And he was like, thanks for the fast ride and the great time. It is about shared experiences. He then went out, he took that car immediately from the time he finished building it and drove it from Phoenix to San Francisco, and then drove it back down to LA, and then he drove it over to Texas. I mean, he just built the car by himself. And he drove it back to Texas, and then he took it on a country road where he was like, I'm gonna fly down this road, and he flipped the car 3 times. After he had done that, he hit a boulder that was right above his head. He opened the door after the car was upside down and walked out in a car that he had built himself. That's amazing. We saved his life from doing something that was probably stupid. And it wasn't something that he expected, and the world of driving the heavy atoms around happens. Things are unexpected. Diseases happen, accidents happen, and being able to advance at a stage where we can make those things more dealable with is a great thing. So I'm very, very happy to hear that. So this is what it looks like where we build on the floor. No paint in here. One of the great things that we wanted to do was take paint out of the equation. No more effluents. So basically you come in and you can have a car that not only is structurally sound and not only can ride and meet the regulations on the road, but also you can make it look good on the outside. And you can empower a community of graphic designers who love to design vehicles to help you make your car a BMW art car. I always loved that series of BMW cars, Ken Doane, Frank Stella, all these things. But they went around in museums. And there's so many great graphic designers out there who deserve an opportunity to be able to paint on your car if you want to have them help you make that. This is what's happening right now, and we're helped by companies like 3M who've done amazing things in wrap technology to be able to make that possible. We stand on the shoulder of giants. There's no way we could bring those cars to market if we didn't. So how do we do it? We try to do things faster. Everybody talks about Tesla and Fisker. I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for them, but we want to make cars and bring them to market 3 times faster than they do, and definitely 5 to 7 times faster than General Motors does. And these are the bona fides that show that we've actually done it. So that's a graph about it. And then I think the other thing to look at is capital efficiency. Ours is sort of, we look at the graph on the left, the capital efficiency we put to work. That Rally Fighter that's out there that we've sold to 30 customers and put 400,000 miles on, we invested $3 million in. I think the last Kickstarter project was 10 million bucks. We can kickstart cars, whole models that get sold, 3 million bucks. Unfortunately, we've got car companies out there that have spent hundreds of millions of taxpayer dollars to be able to bring them to market. And that is a difficult thing to swallow in terms of change of pace that we need. It's not that I don't lionize the efforts they put forward. I think they're awesome, but we have to figure out how to solve that capital equation and make it more fundable in order to be able to do. So the important thing is it has attracted a lot of people's attention. It attracted this guy's attention this past summer. We built a military vehicle for the Qaus Bowl in Afghanistan, and we wanted to prove that it was possible within 1 quarter, 3 months, to be able to take a crowdsourced idea from the field and put a vehicle in the field that could answer the soldiers' needs on the ground and make that vehicle replicable as it goes forward. That, as a Marine, truly changes the game. It means that when you're fighting an enemy, enemies have a way of not getting dislodged over a very quick period of time. Short of a thermonuclear device, it's really hard to just take people out when they have an irreconcilable will. That's what war means. And so if you have the ability to be able to incise with solutions that maybe can help finish conflicts faster, that is an incredible thing so that we don't get into World War I trench warfare. And that was something that our Defense Department was looking to try to do, and they had not figured out how to do it. They had a really micro budget and a very bold leader of DARPA, Regina Dugan, and she wanted to come in and show that this adaptive vehicle make paradigm was possible. We felt like we could do it right away, and we did. So a gut check here. I know we got a lot of makers here. So these are texts on the left. That's laugh out loud. What the heck? So there's an idiot between me and the stage. I just want to say that, for me, if you think what I'm saying is crazy, please catch me afterwards, just as sort of a little stop here and ask some questions, because I'll never answer all the questions that are out there. And I know there's so many doubts that are out there about, like, can you make it? Can you replicate it? Is it inexpensive? Ask. And please let us know, because we have a team here that wants to answer questions, and I think that that's the most important thing. Or ask our customers. We had basically a 7 and 11-year-old build with their dad a couple of months ago, and when their father finished the build, what he said to Buddy and what he said to the other folks that were there helping him, Buddy's one of our team members, is he said, "Thank you for giving my kids a lesson that they couldn't have learned in a whole semester at school. They learned how to take a tool, make something with it, and put it back on the board after it was done." So, awesome. Next time what I do is I need to get them a little head so they can put it inside the head when they're basically, that is, for me, when it all boils down, we make vehicles, we promote and encourage great talent, and in the spirit of Sakichi Toyota, we are looking for constant improvement all the way along. And the promise of Kaizen is really a promise that was only ever fulfilled in the modern industrial world twice over. It was basically said, I want to be able to co-create, I want to be able to come in and improve in constant improvement with my suppliers, and I want to be able to do it with my investors. But the point is, I want to be able to do it with my customers. That was the third thing that Sakichi Toyota wrote about, but it never really happened that well, and it's happening now in our business and a lot of others. So, so this is the Rally Fighter. It is made by you in America. And being in the car world, I think another trend that I wanted to report on a little bit is I was recently reading an article by an analyst, the senior automotive analyst at the Gartner Group. Anybody here from the Gartner Group? Okay, so I can say it. So anyway, the analyst from the Gartner Group had a great phrase that's been repeated a lot, and he said that the future Ford Mustang is the iPhone. I think that's a shame. I don't think the future Ford Mustang is the iPhone. I think the future Ford Mustang is a great Ford Mustang, or a car that does something different. And the iPhone is a wonderful product, but it can't take you to a hospital. It can't allow you to do everything that you need to do in life. And so my word, in my view, to the people, and this has been parroted over by the great companies that make vehicles, BMW, Mercedes, GM, Toyota, many of them have gotten into mobility services today. They say, we're going to start a new funding arm. It's going to be in Silicon Valley or Boston, and we're going to start funding mobility services because we're out of the business of making cars. That is a problem. As far as I'm concerned, screw that. You need to cowboy up. If you make cars, make great cars. You have these great legacies behind you, and you can make great cars. And the cultural milestones and pathways that are out there, they cause us to lose our way in the name of progress, and that's where jobs go. We all know it in this audience, but you stop learning how to make things, and then you stop learning as a country how to be able to advance. And so I think that the status quo of doing that is, of staying where you are, ends up investing in mobility services instead of investing in new vehicles. And I'm really excited to be part of that change and to make those things happen. So we're very international. We run competitions. Today we're finishing a competition that was to design a bicycle, a tricycle, human-powered and electric assist for Milan. Please go look at those entries. There are 88 of them online from incredible people all over the world, and we partnered with a French company to do that and bring that to market. So it's international, it's very connected, it has engineers, fabricators, designers. And effectively what I want to say is, you all know Chris Anderson out there, or many of you do. He's been a great friend to those of us. He's been lionized a couple of times in the slides. And when Chris wrote the article about moving atoms to bits, or bits to atoms, and being able to parlay between them, he was dead on and dead right about what it was. And it's just a question of, we need to live up to that promise. You know, a wise man once wrote, you know, tell me and I'll remember. Show me and I will, tell me and I'll forget. Show me and I'll remember. Let me take part and I'll fall in love. And that is really what I think people like Chris are talking about. You know, you just tell me, I'm going to forget. And so effectively, how many people in here have read Shop Class for Soulcraft? This is like the only audience where you get that many people, but it's great. You know, my favorite quote in that is, when your sink breaks, it's not going to be a plumber in India that's going to fix it. It's going to be a $90 an hour plumber who's going to come in and fix your sink while your job gets shipped overseas as a white-collar investment banker, and you're not even going to know how to operate the latte machine to make that plumber a coffee. Matthew Crawford has this sort of like really wry sense of wit. So I think it goes deeper than that, though. It goes to things like this. We had a reference to it yesterday. I mean, Jim Cameron, here's a guy as a kid who dreamed of what it must have been like to be on the Titanic, grew up to make a movie about it, and used that movie in order to be able to fund the first explorations to go see that with your own eyes, and then to be able to go to the bottom of the Marianas Trench and tweet about it all the way down. I think he has inspired people for generations. This was the stats in the first 8 hours, 30,000 tweets. The Nat Geo site that was there, the videos that you could watch, I mean, people were pouring through them at the millions, right? And he transmitted those things from 9,000 kilometers away, making it real for us, moving heavy atoms around, a guy who had dreamed about going down and seeing the Titanic. So we all know Bill Joy's quote. Bill Joy, no matter where you are, who you are, most of the smartest people in the world work for somebody else. So this is the sort of Joy's Law, as it's called, about why crowdfunding might work. And it's been proven out in a bunch of different places, but it haunts us in our innovation efforts. And Carl alluded to this. The British took 200 years to come through their manufacturing revolution. The United States took 50 years to come through their manufacturing revolution, and China's taken 2. Do we think there's going to be a Malaysia that takes 1, and then there's going to be a Bangladesh that takes a half a year? Like, when are we going to run out of countries that keep doing it faster? I think the answer that we all know in our hearts is that individuals can take it back in less than a year. We're already taking it back where we're making a difference. 200 years, 50 years, 2 years. Let's take it back in 1. These are some of the companies that maybe haven't been mentioned as we've talked about, but have made this possible. And there's so many more, but they're just examples that people have heard. We've talked a little bit about Kickstarter, maybe haven't talked as much about Pinocchio, Quirky, Threadless, some Chicago companies, New York companies, Alibaba, in order to being able to make things. In the car world, just to be able to access people in China and buy things quickly is a really important thing. And so there are many things that come together to make it possible, and in moving this business along, it is empowered by a whole ecosystem of people. Does anybody know Bob Langer by chance? We've got a couple people who do. This guy he has a big brain. He's a very smart guy. He's one of the few institute professors at MIT. He's filed more patents than most people will ever do. He's written tons of scientific papers, and he is the youngest person ever to be elected to the National Academy of Sciences. Bob is a great guy and very smart. Here is Bob's network. This is Bob's network of having collaborated with prolific authors on the subject, within 2 years, on the subject of human tissues. This is his network in the network of all of the prolific authors that are out there. So it turns out that though Bob is very well connected, he is not that well connected to everybody that's doing great research. And there could be other new young Bob Langers that are out there that are not connected to him. And that's the important lesson here when we think about Joy's Law and why we have moved along. Everybody knows this story, but it is one that has proven time and again that it's possible for you to come up with just a simple maker-type idea and move forward with people who are inspired to be able to go through. I think it's fun to put it up there for people to remember what the initial posts look like, because those first 2 posts were the initial posts. 280 million lines of code, equivalent development cost has been somewhere between $6 and $10 billion. So 2 causal reasons for Joy's Law that are out there for a little bit of academicians. Knowledge is unevenly distributed. That's been something that's been known for a while, and it's sticky. And so we need to share it in order to be able to get out there. And so here are some how-tos that I would sort of end on, and I've got an announcement that I want to be able to make too. If you want to manage a community of open collaborators, I think these 4 things make the biggest difference. You got to lead, and in leading, you have to craft a vision. Crafting that vision means, what do I stand for? For me, it was, we're going to make cars, we're going to make them cheaper, and we're going to make them faster, and they're going to look awesome while we're doing it. But craft the vision. Do you want your cars to look like that, or do you want your cars to look like that? Doesn't matter. Just choose which one you're going to do and set that vision to go forward. Do you want your world to look like that? Is that how you want delivery of cars to look like at a port, or do you want to make them locally? Do you want your factories to end up looking like this 40 years after? This is in Detroit on Bellevue Avenue, the original Packard plant, which had been used again and again and again, and then finally couldn't be reused again, and now it looks like this today. If you're going to do this with cars, and many of us have seen these images of cars, are you ready for this? Some of it is good, and some of it is not. And so those are some of the decisions that we have to make as we're moving forward quickly to change these heavy atoms in the world and make things happen. So this is a picture of basically what some of the upstream issues are with electric vehicles that are out there. Some is good and some is bad. So organizing, that's the other thing from a point of view of managing people. Innovation paradigms require you to sometimes lift your finger and do the things that other people won't do. It's what we do as corporations a lot. A lot of times corporations are looked at as sort of bad actors, but many times what they're doing is they're trying to fill the holes so that they can continue to inspire people as they go along. So managing the things that a community won't do for itself. Having respect for people, for winners, Finding those winners faster is another thing. I think this movement toward B corporations, if any of you have seen them or heard them, is an amazing thing. And it's the kind of thing where more businesses will be going to because they're there for the public good. And being able to judge that, B Labs does a great job, and there are other people that do it too. And then finally, engagement. It's the new currency. People come to us all the time and they say, now how much money do I have to pay somebody to help develop an idea that I have? And we say, how much are you willing to engage? Because if you're willing to talk to them, then you've found already a lot of the capital that you needed in order to be able to make it happen. If you go look online for us, one of that French company that I mentioned doing the bicycle, they made a video to thank the community members that were out there. And in that video, they just posted it yesterday, so it's fresh. We saw it yesterday, you could see it today. And it's a thank you video. In that video, they take the community members that participated in that challenge into places in their factory where you can't even go if you're an employee at that factory. Think about that. It's amazing. You're a collaborator. So this is one thing I like to say. I'm going to throw it up here. It's kind of important. If you're thinking about co-creating or engagement open innovation, this is a paradigm we like to look at. You need to figure out whether it's right for you, and I can talk about it a little bit more, but the bottom line is it has something to do with whether your solution knowledge or whether your use knowledge is evenly distributed, broadly distributed, or tightly concentrated. And so we can talk about that more. It's not right for everybody, but there is a paradigm under which I think it works. So I'm going to skip over this for a little bit. I'm not going to talk about intellectual property here because my time is running thin. We've got 2 minutes and I want to talk about something else, but I can talk about it as we go forward. So we've partnered to be able to bring fully parametric CAD online. You can get it for subscription, $19 a month online. This is the first of many efforts that we're going to do to be able to make real making possible. But what I wanted to show that this allows us to be able to do is it allows you to be able to design, and it allows you to be able to bring any format that you want to be able to make it possible to compete in a competition like that. It allows you to be able to make things. So this is the first example of what we're debuting today. This is something that was designed online. I'm just going to pull it out here. This was designed online. It was ordered online from us. And basically, it can be put in a vehicle tomorrow. You're able to upload your parts. You're able to select the stock you want in order to be able to do it on Local Motors. And you'll be able to pick the size material you want to do it in and make it real. And here's the first prototype to come off. So that's it right there. And this basically means that as a making movement, you can come in and make parts of real cars. And this is a part like a shock mount that would go on a vehicle out there. And that's now going to be debuted, and we're starting with it just this week. So these are real promises that are out there. I want to thank you all for listening to me today. This is a movement that we think is fantastic. We poke fun at Corvette sometimes, and come take a ride in our car afterwards. Join us in co-creating vehicles and changing the way that the heavy atoms move, and thank you very much for your attention.